You're listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast, discussing all aspects of precision and long-range rifle shooting. This episode is brought to you by Impact Dynamics, advanced training for the precision shooter. And now, over to your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to the Precision Shooting Podcast. This is episode number 49. My name's Rusty, and we got a few guys in here tonight. So joining me here is Andrew next to me. How you going, Andrew?
Yeah, good, mate. Yourself?
Excellent. And Greg asked me something different than how I'm going.
How are you, Rusty?
I'm fantastic and amused by your question. And joining us tonight, special guest is Galen. How are you, Galen?
I'm well. How are you, Rusty?
That's
I'm
what
not
Greg
meant to
asked
ask
me.
you.
No,
Yeah.
You're not meant to ask me that. Anyway, that's no problem at all, mate. Now, Galen is joining us because we are doing a Precision Rifle Invitational special tonight, talking about some of the bits and pieces. And Galen, well done, mate. You came fourth overall out of 30 people. But we'll get more into that slightly later. But, probably congratulations are in order.
Yeah.
Definitely. Tough field.
No, as we'll get to it later, but big improvement from last year, and I think effort is rewarded. So, well done.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, before we get into that, how's everyone's, few weeks been? We've been tied up with all that sort of stuff. You guys been well?
Yeah, not really a lot of shooting-related activities, but no, we've just come off Easter, obviously, and so, unfortunately, back to the grind. But
back into life, yep.
Yeah, I've been doing a fair bit of shooting, but like just critters, not so much practical stuff.
The stuff you do?
Yeah. So, it's been good.
Thermalising plenty of animals.
Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, so really
good. Excellent. Galen?
Yeah, I've just been debriefing from the PRI and starting to think about the next go-round, which is coming up pretty shortly.
Oh, yeah. Well, that brings us on to, I guess, another topic, which is the official announcement of the Precision Rifle Series Australia edition being launched here. So listeners may have been listening for a little bit will remember that I was over in the US with Special Greg, and while we were over there, we went to the PRS finale, and that was all part of being sort of working towards getting them to be present here in Australia. And so if you haven't seen it yet, the first PRS sanctioned event will be run in June in Mildura. And Galen, you're heading up for that?
I certainly am, yep.
Yeah, it looks to be quite good. It's the Vortex-sponsored Cold Steel Open for the first ever event. So details on that, we probably should actually run through some details on that so guys listening will know about it. But we also will certainly put all that stuff on both Facebook and on the details for this podcast. So it is, as soon as I can get this computer thing to work, it is the 2nd till the 4th of June at the Mildura SSAA, and there are limited spots available, so make sure you book in. We'll put up a link as well, but you can find the Precision Rifle Series AUS Oz on Facebook to be able to find the link to be able to actually register. And there is a huge amount of prizes up for grabs and a whole stack of support out of the US, and also a bunch of Australian companies as well, which is really good to see the support this thing has grown. If you're not familiar with the Precision Rifle Series, probably haven't been listening to us for very long. And I guess what we're going to cover tonight, which is not a predecessor, but certainly part of what sort of led to the PRS being available here in Australia. So it'll give you a bit of a taste of the type of things you may encounter at the shoot. Galen, you excited about it?
Yeah, I'm very excited. A bit of nervous excitement as well. It's a fairly big deal, and I think there's going to be some pretty good shooters there. So, yeah, excited and pretty keen to get going, to be honest. Yeah,
it should be good fun. You say it's a big deal. I mean, it's exciting. Is it? I don't want anyone to be intimidated by that, though. It's just to get along and actually shoot.
Well, I mean, there'll be good shooters there, but there were good shooters at the PRI we held not long ago, and you certainly more than held your own against them. So I think it's one of those things that, there'll be a whole bunch of guys of very good shooting ability. It's just how they hold up, I think, mentally. I mean, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Guys stress themselves out and they don't perform well. So it's sort of a matter of holding it together mentally as well as your shooting ability. So.
One of the main reasons that I shoot, I guess, is to surround myself with blokes that and ladies, I guess, if there's any around shooting a PRS, that do the same thing, Sean. People that do the same thing and have the same likes as I do, and at the Impact Dynamics PRI, met some really good chaps, and befriended those people, and looking forward to doing the same thing in Mildura.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty exciting to see. There's a pretty, as Rusty said before, pretty hefty prize table for the PRS shoot.
Yeah, something like 30 grand worth or something.
Yeah, and I can only
huge.
imagine that will grow in subsequent events. Once it sort of really takes off. I mean, it is taking off more and more here, but I think once the PRS is well and truly established here, we'll see increasing prize tables. I mean, that's some good money there.
And I think for a new shooter or someone that's relatively new to the practical rifle shooting, it's a good place to learn as well. You might pick up some prizes along the way, but a great place to run into some blokes that have maybe got a bit more skill and knowledge. I certainly learned a great deal over the competitions that I've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think as well, just for me, I've always been interested in this type of shooting, but maybe 10 years ago there was nothing really. Guys had their own little mini comps with amongst a few mates on private land, but this is sort of bringing together people of similar interest, and it's pretty exciting to see the number of people coming out of the woodwork that have always been interested, but now's the opportunity. So.
Yeah, it's good. And one thing that I probably want to mention is that, we talk about a huge amount of prizes, but same as what it was like at the PRI, the problem is sort of running these things, you don't want to see all those amazing prizes go into the hands of the guys who already have those things that are on the prize table. So of that prize mix, and I know the same thing happens a fair bit in the States, and it did happen for us at the PRI and will happen at the PRS, is you sort of want to get some of those good prizes into the hands of guys that actually need it, rather than the shooters at the top that actually have got most of the gear. You want to reward them for coming first, but you also want to be able to sort of help those guys who are up and coming. So a lot of those prizes, I suspect, will be given out randomly or for other criteria that doesn't necessarily base completely on top performance.
Yeah, and that certainly encourages those guys with without the 10 or 15 years of experience to come and compete. If you were to come and shoot, knowing that where you place is not necessarily critical for you to walk away with something, such as the shoot the NT guys are having.
Yeah, it's a great example.
They've got an AI rifle as a door prize, so you could come last, but you're still in with a equal chance of taking that rifle away. So
that's why I registered for that one as well, Andrew.
Yeah, same for me. That's why I registered for that one. I wouldn't mind walking away with that. That'd be great.
I certainly think that the PRS is a great opportunity for people. I believe they've got two divisions as well.
Yeah, good point.
So the division that I'm shooting in is the open division. I think there's a production class as well.
Yes, there is a production class, and I guess that probably requires some clarification around. So there's, the rules read that it's an unmodified factory rifle with a scope and rifle package worth less than $5,000 or under $5,000 Australian. But to put some clarity around that, the production division really is for those guys who are just getting into it or just getting into shooting, and really to allow them to be able to compete and enjoy the match, not necessarily having all the fancy gear. But you change your stock, or you change sort of a relatively minor change, and you're into open. And to be honest, that's where most people really should be. If they've been shooting for a long time, open's really where you want to be. That particular match in Mildura is going to be limited to 600 metres. So I've been sort of saying to some guys that distance isn't the big driving factor for a challenge. The challenge will be shooting under time pressure, mental pressure, problem solving, or positional as well.
Yeah, and target size too. You can have a 600 metre shot on a relatively large target is easy to make, but if you put it on a small target, different story.
Off a barricade becomes very challenging. Excellent. So really excited to see the PRS arrive in Australia and see how it all kicks off. And then of course there hopefully will be a couple of events this year, and then actually into a proper series next year with points counting over the year, working towards a finale. So,
have you got a sort of an indication at this stage of how many shoots that will be over, say, the course of 2018?
Nothing locked down at this point, Andrew. I'm expecting probably around the 6 shoots mark, I believe. But again, it's sort of very early days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to try and work our way through Mildura first, and then see where it takes us from there. But certainly plans are in the works to try and get a reasonable series to end up with a bit of a finale for the year.
Sounds good.
So I guess we probably now move on to what happened about 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah, 3.
Well, hang on. How long haven't I had my car for? About 3 weeks. So it'd be about 3 weeks. From the precision.
How much did that cost you?
Move on. So from the Precision Rifle Invitational, which was the Impact on MX private invitational shoot, which I guess was a few weeks ago. And to clarify everyone's role, so I was fortunate enough to be match director. Andrew was a range officer for 3 different stages. Greg, what were you doing?
Range control, mate. Voice of God.
The voice of God. I like that.
He's got a face for radio.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Greg kept up his radio career and basically talked on the radio the entire weekend. And Galen, yourself, you're a competitor.
I certainly was, and enjoyed every minute of it. It was a fantastic event, run superbly by yourself and the other stage officers and everybody. It was
we're not used to
event,
getting praise on this podcast, mate.
Sorry,
we usually give each other a hard time.
Hated every minute.
So you were saying you enjoyed the walking part as well? Is that what you were indicating?
I knew that was coming up.
Yeah. The walking not so much, but happy with the result, and the event was fantastic. I went there looking to engage with some people and meet some new people, which I did. I had some benchmarks that I wanted to achieve, and I exceeded those. Very, very happy with the weekend.
So, Greg, you had an overview of everything. Do you want to give us a bit of a rundown on the event overall?
Oh, okay. So from my point of view, I could see all the range templates, I guess, and we had
for someone not aware of the competition at all.
Yeah. Okay. So
give them a pitch.
What we had was 3 areas with. How many stands we have in each? 5 in each area. A team of what was supposed to be 12 went to each area and then was split up and were rotated through those areas through the ROs, rotated through the stages within each area, and then we rotated areas. So there was a lot of movement between areas. There was a lot of movement between ranges. In a team-style event. But basically I was controlling, when ranges were hot and cold, making sure targets were maintained and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, sweet.
I think it's probably worth clarifying. It was held over a fairly big area. We were discussing it was roughly 6 kilometres the competitors had to walk.
Plus driving.
Yeah, plus driving.
They drove. Let's just clarify. They drove it a lot more than they walk. We just like to put that out there.
Well, that would depend on who you asked, I guess. But
maybe not from a mental point of view, but from
who had the best shoes.
But basically, it was it's a big property, and obviously with multiple range templates.
Two-day event.
Not trying to sort of toot Greg's horn, but it was a pretty critical job as far as maintaining the safety issues. So no one died, so it was good.
Nice to Greg for.
There's too much paperwork. Yeah. No, it was good. That sort of rolls in the preparation, not so much in the execution. And we had good range layouts and templates, and we knew what was going on and where everything was laid out. So it was pretty easy to control.
Yeah, so a 3-day event with the first day being just practice from the sort of standard setup that we use for training, and then 2 days of stages and challenges and. Interesting. We're gonna take everyone through the stages, which will be interesting because Greg didn't see any.
No, I didn't see a thing.
Andrew saw the ones he run. Galen shot them all, and I didn't see I don't know if I saw a single bullet get fired. I was too busy on a quad bike, thoroughly enjoying myself, which was really good fun. Well, let's start out at the top, eh? That makes a lot of sense. Stage number 1, Bermuda. Now, a few of you guys got to see some of these stages on the team day we held down there. But, Galen, do you want to recall for us Bermuda? Unless anyone else knows Bermuda enough.
No, I can. I'm not sure if I remember the ranges, but Bermuda was shot off 3 shooting positions. I think there was a prone position at about 300 metres.
I'll have it here in a second. There we go. Oh, there, you can have that there.
So
437 metres.
there you go. That's why I missed it.
Oops.
That explains it.
437 metres side-facing Fox Gong. I believe it was 2 rounds at that.
Yep, 2 rounds at it.
And then you'd swing around at 90 degrees onto a tank trap, which was a wooden sort of tank barricade.
If you've seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, it's the things in the water.
Things on the beach.
Yeah, on the beach.
That was 321 at another side-facing Fox, 2 rounds, and then you'd swing 90 degrees, run to the ute, which was, I don't know, probably, 12, 15 metres, something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
A dash, but not a sprint.
Yeah, safely.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. And you'd sort of stand on the ground, lay your rifle over the bed of the truck and shoot at 507 metres. 2 rounds again, and I think we had 60 seconds, if I recall.
Yeah, how'd you go?
2 rounds on the first target, 1 on the second. I had some mag feed issues, which was actually rare for me. I don't normally have that issue. And got to the ute, laid the gun down, and the beeper went, and I ran out of time. So, not too bad, but not that great either.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and probably one thing there, I noticed you were having to flick 90 degrees from position to position. Did that play with you in terms of wind?
Yeah, certainly did. I through the stage brief, once I had the angles and range, basically take note of the wind positions and adjust my dope card to suit. Have that set up on my rifle and I didn't dial. I held over on every shot.
Yep.
Just so that I could make it quick.
Yeah, nice.
That drill, or that stage, sorry, is actually from a drill we use on one of our training courses for Impact Dynamics. And the reason it's in the location it was in, that we made you walk to, is because your first shot is in sort of the funnel of one wind channel. Your third sort of angle across the ute is in the funnel of another wind channel, and your middle one is at where those 2 wind channels meet. So from a wind point of view, it's nightmarish.
It was fairly challenging. Yeah, it was challenging. And I watched some shooters in my squad shoot it really, really well.
Yep.
They know who they are. Look, for me, that was the second stage I ran on the day.
Yep. So probably wind wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too bad. It was in the morning, so it wasn't too bad. I heard the blokes in the afternoon really struggled a little bit there.
It's a wonderful drill to be, and that arc is just over 180 degrees, so it's certainly a real challenge.
Well, certainly later on in the day, on both the Saturday and the Sunday, we had very strong winds. I didn't think to measure them, but I mean they were blowing chairs over and spotting scopes and whatnot. So I think it would have been great fun to shoot in.
So, anything else on Bermuda? You boys didn't see Bermuda at all, did you?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Have to make you guys shoot that one at some point soon.
Rusty, just I think obviously when you do the video, people will see the stage. I think maybe a little bit more clearly. There was some.
There's actually a video of that one floating around at the moment.
Yeah,
we might link that one in. It's the only one that's been put out there.
There were some blokes that shot it really well.
Sean from STS.
Correct.
Specifically, I know there's a couple of the guys who top scored, but Sean did really well.
Sean shot it really well, and that's just an indication of him, I guess, bringing everything together at.
I thought it was just luck
at the right time. Yeah, it might be blind luck, Sean, wasn't it?
Blind luck, I think. All right, good. So moving on to stage number 2. This was the choice. Did you guys see Andrew and Greg? Did you see this one at all? This was actually changed from the team day. So you may not have seen this in its
No, but I certainly heard guys whinging about, happy about, depending on who you spoke to.
All right, so this was a stage where we wanted to incorporate a couple of different things. One was a 90-degree shooting where you cant the rifle over 90 degrees, what we've nicknamed raccoon shooting, because if you don't hold the gun well, you end up looking like a raccoon. And then the other target was a long-range one, 1,175 metres. So there's two targets. The first one was 208 metres. As I said, the second was 1,175. And the guys had 6 rounds and 90 seconds, and they could choose to shoot at either target. 208 metres had to be on the cant, and the 1175 could be whatever position they liked. Obviously, most went or all went prone if they did that. Now, the little addition was that if they shot both targets, they would get a bonus 3 points if they impacted both targets. So I know a few guys sort of hit their first one and then attempted to change target, but no one did it successfully. I think, Galen, you were the top scorer in this one, I believe. He's gone smug. He's looking very smug.
I was actually, and thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, humble about it.
That's all right.
Look,
you owe me $20.
Yeah. No, look, I was, and I had a bit of a wry smile on my face when Dan had, he sort of gave us a stage brief, because the previous day at the practice day I had a very, very short program of about probably 45 minutes of shooting, which all revolved around shooting at a 90-degree cant and working out how to actually do it and how to do it effectively every time.
So you did the 1175 then?
So I didn't do the 1175. I didn't actually transition onto that one because I was hitting the 208 at a cant, and I'd watched a very, very capable shooter shoot before me, and I can't remember how many he hit. I think he hit it once.
Yeah, right.
I can't remember. You know who you are. Sorry if you hit it more than that. But I laid down, prone and shot it. The first 2 rounds I didn't hold for wind and missed, and I put the next 4 rounds on, square, fair and square in the middle. So. Little bit of practice, a little bit of prior preparation, I guess, which is something I advocate for everybody when they're sort of coming into a competition scenario.
Yeah, one thing I noticed, Rusty, with that was on the Friday, you were the only person I saw. I was watching, people go through their various whatever they wanted to do. You're the only person I saw that actually practiced shooting on a 90-degree camp. So I thought, well, having known obviously this was going to be in the comp, I thought he's got the right idea.
The 90-degree cant is something that has been around for a little while, and people will argue that the actual value of it in a practical sense, but there is perhaps scenarios where it may end up being something useful. And there's actually a very simple process to go through to be able to get that data and apply it, which we worked on Friday morning. I was happy to give that information to anyone, but no one else asked.
I was really surprised, actually, Rusty, that more people weren't doing it. I mean, I went to the practice range really early on the Friday, which was also part of my
first shooter there. Yep.
That was part of my strategy, because I guess I didn't want everyone seeing what I was doing. Maybe
you're a man of mystery, Galen.
Yeah, international man of mystery. So, I did a bit of practice, and it is something that I do suggest everybody sort of tries to do. But there's only, I guess, so much you can do in preparation as well.
I think with that stage in particular, it's one of those things. If you haven't done it, it's difficult. Like we spoke about this on a podcast quite some time ago. It's kind of, unless you've done it, you don't know where you're going to be impacting. It's sort of, you can take a guess, but it's not necessarily going to be right. Now, where that particular target was, from what I understand, it wasn't low to the ground, so you couldn't see you fall a shot and use that as a reference. You had to know where your bullets were going.
It was painfully it was not low to the ground. It was high up. It was not on good terrain to fall a shot, and it certainly rewarded those who'd done the due diligence to actually make sure they knew how to shoot that way.
Yeah, and I obviously didn't speak to everybody, but I spoke to one guy who had done it besides you, and so he knew roughly where to be holding. I'm not sure how he did on that particular stage, but a lot of guys just said they had no idea where their bullets were going.
I was amazed on the 100-metre range on the Friday. I was absolutely amazed once I'd set my rifle up to actually do it, and my ballistics app as well, where the fall of shot was. without the adjustments put into to AB.
Yep.
It was massive, and it's, guessing it on a stage like that in the field in a competition wouldn't leave you much chance.
No.
I think I heard one of the competitors make the comment that shooting like that was for the movies, and he proceeded to drill the long-range target first shot. So,
yeah, as I said, there is some. Sometimes you may find yourself where being able to understand can't shooting. I mean, it's a great exercise in a concept that sometimes could be quite useful to know if you couldn't get level. The same theory applies, not necessarily 90 degrees. That's taken to the, taking to the extreme. 180 would be the extreme, wouldn't it? And that'd be who may make an appearance in future times. But anyway, I got talked out of it this time around. But having the understanding of being able to adjust your rifle and being able to adjust your point of impact for it is very good. So moving on from the choice, we move on to probably the favourite stage, or one of the top 3 favourite stages from the competition, was cabin fever. Galen, do you want to? I know this is right up your alley. Do you want to take us through? This was a team stage, first team stage.
Yeah, this was a great stage. Look, I've got 3 real favourites, and this would be on the list.
Sound like the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah. Look, cabin fever started with 2 shooters, team event. One shooter or teammate inside of the building, which was a converted
cubby house. Andrew's kids' cubby house.
Yeah.
So I guess the premise, I call it the zombie stage, but I guess the premise was that the first shooter has to make their way to their teammate via a moving platform, which was a wobble platform.
It's like a boat type. So
the stage would start. I think we had 90 seconds. Stage would start. I had
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
120.
2 minutes. So the stage started with me in full gear.
What does that mean?
Okay,
it's not a Saturday night, is it?
Yeah. So my Saturday night fever kit, and so you'd run onto the wobble platform, lay prone. And I think it was about 350 metres.
You're bloody close, mate. 356 metres.
356 metres.
Yeah.
On a fairly acute upward angle.
Yep.
As well. Partially obscured, I think, a little bit by some scrub.
Depends how tall you are. I mean, depends how fat you are, really.
Yeah, correct, yes.
For me, I sat quite high on the platform.
You could see it clearly.
I could see it clearly, yeah.
So it was 2 rounds on to start.
Yep.
And once you've got your 2 rounds on that particular target, well, you can't transition to the next position without putting your 2 rounds on target.
Yep.
You then pick yourself up, your rifle and all of your gear, your pack or whatever you're carrying, and you take yourself through to the building, where your teammate's sitting inside with his rifle now, no ammo. So I was carrying the ammo for my teammate.
Yep.
Thrust it through the window there for him.
Good use of the word thrust.
I had to get
well
that
done.
in there. Had to
well
get that
done.
in. And so he would load his rifle. Now I can't remember, 280 metres.
There was
through a window.
A few different targets, about 220.
Around about, yep. So he'd have to put his rounds down range and not transition until he hit, and then exit the building safely. I think that was actually quite clear. It was really well done. There's no muzzles flashing everywhere, and come through to the back of the building, shoot the same target through the back window, and then front window.
Yep.
Through the entire building, and then the final shot for the teammate was on his off shoulder. So a right hand shooter shooting on his left shoulder, or vice versa, at an acute angle. So obviously wind call came into that one.
And that was through trees out
through
to
trees.
About 280 metres.
Correct, yeah, that was a 280. And then once he's got a round on, we were 2 rounds, I think it was, wasn't it?
2 rounds? Yeah, up to 2 rounds.
2 rounds, yep.
Yep.
And then we'd grab our gear, run back up to the wobble platform, lay back down prone, both of us, and I think it was we had to put 2 rounds back onto that initial target.
Correct.
But it didn't matter if I'd hit them both, or we hit one each, or my teammate had hit the other, so or he'd got the 2 rounds on. So, and then that was the end of the stage. I think Joel and I, we got back to the wobble platform, got our bolts closed, and timed out.
Yeah. No one during comp actually finished that stage. It was finished in practice, though, in testing, though.
By who, Rusty?
We'll leave it at that, but it was certainly finished by the guys that designed it, one of them being the King of the North, who we have mentioned on this podcast before. Yeah, but it certainly was a challenge. It was good fun, though.
Great fun. Yeah.
And that's one I actually did get to see a couple of times being run. And, it certainly looked really, really good fun. Good.
Agreed.
All right, okay, I guess that's probably a sign we'll move on to stage number 4. Now, this was a very polarising stage. This is called Goal Setter. They got the guys to start out. They had 4.5 minutes for this stage. And from the shooting position, there was a star dropper every 100 metres, 100, 2, 3, 4, out to 500 metres. And the concept was that you would have to pick up a target at the shooting position and run it out to one of those star droppers, put it on, run back, and then take your shots on target. Each time you hit the target was worth 3 points. But the kicker was that every 100 metres you covered out was worth 1 round. So if you ran to 100 metres and ran back, you got 1 shot at 100 metres worth 3 points. If you ran to 200 metres, you got 2 shots, and so on and so forth. So if you'd run to 400 metres, you would have got 4 shots worth 3 points each per impact. And I should clarify that the ground we were running on was not perhaps Olympic-level track type ground. It was perhaps closer to a Ironman type race, but with rocks plenty as well. And so the guys were left up to making a decision as to their fitness, their shooting ability, how much time they had, and how they would run out there, put the target up and run back. Now, the target was not hard to put onto a dropper. Galen, you obviously shot this one. I've shot it as well. It was just a quick, simple drop. It was not going to chew up your time.
That's right. Yep.
And so we, as I said, it polarised people because a lot of people seem to think this was a physical challenge, which was partially true, but this was very much a mental challenge of how far do you go and what decisions do you make in terms of this stage. Other gentlemen who you didn't see this one run, did you see it on the team day at all? Yeah,
I had a bit of a look there. We changed things a little bit on the time, I think, from the team day we had through to the actual comp day.
Yep.
One thing I was going to ask was what was the furthest anybody actually ran the target to on the comp?
Successfully.
See, actually no.
Either.
I reckon. So on the team day, 400 metres was done, and on the comp, I reckon some guys ran 400 metres, but I don't think they got either all their shots off or they got all hits. Actually, I'm not sure anyone got all their shots off at 400.
Yeah, right.
So I do remember hearing at least one competitor telling me that he was definitely going to 500, and I was encouraging him to try, but evidently he only went to 300.
So the 500 in this particular stage, I say it was a mental challenge because that 500 was very much a red herring. That last 100 metres was actually quite a tough run. It was slightly uphill a bit more. Now we had one guy who did do some testing on this stage, and 500 would have been possible in theory, but very challenging in practice in terms of you would have to be in the top echelon of fitness and have your head screwed on really, really well to make that 500 metre one run. And then even then, now you're starting to, in that particular area, wind was quite challenging for a lot of it. So it was obviously the further you go away in sort of MOA talk, the target got smaller and smaller and smaller, so the percentage of hitting reduced significantly. So that 500 metre was very much a red herring there to hopefully bait a few guys into going for. None did, but it certainly messed with them and made 400 look more attractive.
I mean, I'd certainly say anybody that didn't attempt 500 was probably a little bit on the cowardly side. I was hoping to see it. I was hoping to see it be done, but...
and what you did 503.5 minutes and got all 5 shots on, didn't you, Andrew?
Hours? 3.5 hours? No, I had the luxury of sitting on a chair looking through a spotting scope. But no...
I like how you're making value judgments on people, though.
Absolutely. Every one of them. Yourself included, Galen.
Thank you.
So, Galen, tell us about your experience with this particular stage.
This was the first stage that I shot in my initial squad on the Saturday morning. And,
that must suck.
Yeah, look, it was actually quite difficult for me to make my decision on where I was going to go on this one. And you say the mental game, and I think very much so.
Yeah.
Anyone really there can take a shot at 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 metres and know they're going to hit it pretty much.
Yep.
So I watched somebody, I won't name them, but I watched somebody...
Again, they know who they are.
They know who they are.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I watched somebody run out to 300 metres, put the target on, run back, shuffle back, get down into the prone position, take a deep breath, close the bolt and time out. So not one round down range and certainly no points. I was a second shooter and learnt from that lesson. And being the elderly statesman that I am, made the decision to go to 200 metres. I got out there and back. I think I walked the last 50 metres, controlled the breathing, got down behind the rifle, took my 2 shots and hit the target, got the points. So my premise for the whole weekend was to not drop points or not have a stage where I gained no points, which is a bit of the safe option. But certainly on that stage, I wasn't risking not getting a round off.
Yeah, I was very much looking forward to seeing how guys were going to run that, because there were obviously guys from fairly differing fitness levels. I was sort of hoping some of the guys, the really fit guys, were going to push it, because ultimately, like when we had our sort of practice run through of the team guys on this stage, said one of the guys did run 400. And he got back to the mat with about 47 seconds to spare, which I believe for the actual comp we dropped 30 seconds off the time. So it would have left him 17 seconds.
I'm not sure, actually, because we added 30 seconds to that stage from what it was originally planned to be.
From memory, I thought when we ran it through as a team day, we were running 5 minutes.
Yes, he might have run more on the team day, but we actually added time to the original plan for that stage.
Well, running 5 minutes, he got back with 47 seconds to spare. He got 4 rounds. He got 3 off, missed all 3 because he was just panting so hard, and then timed out, didn't get the 4th shot away. So I sort of got to thinking, 2 to 300 would be the safer bet. 200, you got a fairly assured 2 hits. But, yeah.
And for me, running that stage as the first stage of the day, first stage of the weekend, I certainly wasn't going to pull a hammy. and the ground, Rusty, I think you're certainly being kind on the ground. It was challenging to run on. It was sandy, quite deep sand, got rocky on the way back. It was up that hill. Knowing you're against the clock, and so it's a very, very mental game, that one. I even now, if I was shooting it again right now, I would go to 200. I wouldn't risk 3.
See, it's funny that because you guys were the first ones on, and you said that the first shooter went to 300 and then came back and didn't go for it. And obviously then that would have carried on in the group. People would have seen that and then sort of made a decision based on that. Yet, majority of people, we actually sort of the top score was 9 points. And it was by too many to actually name. Most people got 9 points, or not most, but a lot of people got 9 points on that stage. So obviously 300 seemed to be the comfortable distance. And I perhaps think that maybe a few of those guys could have got to 400 and got 12 points, but perhaps decided to play the safer option. So it was interesting. As I said, very much when it was designed, it was a mental challenge more than a physical challenge, and it did certainly play out that way. And I know not everyone saw that. A lot of people thought it was a real physical challenge, but you review it and you look back on it, and particularly in the context of how everyone went, it was very much mental.
As I said, it was a difficult decision for me to take the 200.
Yeah.
Knowing that I'm almost certainly, I am dropping 3 points. But another...
But you're gaining 6. Anyway.
Correct. Exactly right. I mean, the next shooter after me ran out to 300, put 1 round down, and missed the second 2. Yeah. So he's run to 300 metres.
Done all the effort.
And got the same points as he could have got if he ran to 100 metres on the first stage of the weekend. So, yeah, a very mental game, that one.
Good. hopefully demoralising as well sometimes. I should just mention I've just now brought up the top scores for each stage, and we should certainly mention on Bermuda we did talk Sean up from STS a fair bit, but also on the top points was Clyde Rathbone and Butters as well, the other bloke that we sometimes mention. Butters. Yeah, that guy. So moving on from Gold Setter, if we think we've thrashed that enough, was Descent 2.
I know this one is range control. We had a few injuries out of this one, didn't we?
Back
Emotional and physical, I believe.
A lot of mental scarring. Probably in the best bet to run this one through. So this was a reshake of a stage from the previous year called Descent. Logical naming dictated it be called Descent 2. But I think a lot of guys were pretty happy to see this stage back because it was quite a popular one from the year before.
Yeah, sure was.
Yeah,
lots of smiles the year before from
absolutely.
the first one.
The concept was you effectively run down a hill, shooting on your way down and then leg it back up. And it was a team stage, and this year was completely team stage. Last year it was a bit of a hybrid, and I know there's been much discussion on that, Galen. But this year it was a full team stage. There was no individual points, and the idea was you start off, run to your first position, you shoot prone out to about the 550 mark, run down, throw your gun on a hog saddle. You got no time to sort of prep the hog saddle. It's just pointing the right direction, and shoot a target at 281, then run down, shoot a target on what we call side prone. So rather than being behind the rifle, you're off to the side of it, which is, I think a lot more guys were familiar with this year, perhaps because the first year they had no idea what to do. That was about 300 metres, and then run down a little bit further down the hill, shoot a popular target at 100 metres kneeling, run sideways, actually sort of through some trees, then pop out on the other side and then shoot from a standing position a fox at 120 metres. And then they would find themselves back on, those who shot last year would find themselves back on the original descent run and run themselves back up to the top of the hill. And then they'd hit a little buzzer or a horn thing, and that'd blast a noise, at which point the second shooter would then complete the same task as well. And it was 1 point per impact, plus there were some bonus points if you finished under a certain time as a team. So there was incentive to keep moving quickly as well. So the guys were excellent. There was no safety breaches on that particular stage, which was brilliant to see. Nice and safe. And we did have a couple of injuries. Fortunately enough, we've actually got both of those injuries on video, and neither of them were significantly of any sort of massive issue. We pulled both of those guys out on quads, but they both were able to get to the top. It wasn't to the point where they couldn't walk themselves out. So anytime you do that, you're going to always going to have some sort of risk of physical sort of challenge. But the boys who did end up with that were very good about it, and we nursed them back to health, so which was good to see.
Yeah, this was definitely a stage I heard a little bit of whinging about, not sort of looking at anybody particular in the room. Galen?
Thanks, Andrew. I didn't... I didn't shoot this one very well. I hit the first target prone. I was a second shooter.
Yep.
Hit the first target prone, went down the hog saddle, hit that one. Got to the side prone shot, the third shot, and timed out. So yeah.
Oh, okay, because you were a second shooter.
I was a second shooter.
Yeah, gotcha.
So the first shooter, my teammate had run the full course, got through to the air horn, blew the air horn, and had simply taken a little bit of the time up. But being a team event, and I was not actually at the time aware that it was a full team-only event.
That's become clear now to me.
So I was under the impression that I'd lost an opportunity to gain points.
Points for your personal, like individual
for my personal score.
Yeah, we should clarify that. So last year, Descent was the points for the impacts were based around the individual score, but the points for the overall time was based around the team score, and which was an interesting dynamic to throw in because it made some people make some decisions based on one or the other, and they could sort of play a tactical game. Now this year we decided to make it completely team. And there actually was time limits on each individual run last year, was this time it was overall. So, your team, and obviously what then made sense to you in due course was that, that doesn't affect my individual score because it would be unfair otherwise if your first, if your teammate took way too long, which then impacted on your ability to score your own points. And we tried to make sure that there was no aspect of your teammate would definitely cost you points. Some stages where they might give you some advice, might be bad advice, and perhaps you shouldn't listen to it, but the team-only stages were very much team-only.
And for me, looking back 3 weeks, to that event, to that stage, a perfect example of a shooter not understanding the course of fire after the briefing, myself, I mean. So a very important thing that I learned from that is, make sure you understand the course of fire.
Yeah, I mean, look, as an RO, I sort of tried to be very clear. Like, I'd explain the stage to guys, and then I would say, can everybody identify the targets? Does everybody understand? But like that stage we're just talking about with you, Galen, it's pretty easy to miss a little detail if you're trying to get your head around distances and work out your drops and whatever.
There's a lot going on, second stage for the day.
Yeah, correct. And I mean, as I'm getting the stage brief, I'm writing my dope card off my dope card on my arm.
Yep.
Writing distances, writing my dial for elevation, and looking at the wind and doing a lot of things in that 3 minute period. I missed
5 minutes, but
5 minutes.
Felt like 3.
It felt like 2 minutes. But I missed that detail, and look, it's just the way it is. I didn't shoot that stage. Well, I hit everything I shot at, so I shot it okay.
It's not bad.
Well, so you pulled your weight for the team anyway.
Yeah, well, I did. Yeah, and my teammate actually shot that stage really well. So I don't think as a team we really struggled too much. We gained as many points as we possibly could on that stage.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
But I don't think you were the only one that, at least initially, was thinking, oh great, I'm going second, I don't have as much time or anything like that. But yeah,
I think looking back right now, I would probably have strategized with the teammate and said, okay, who's going to run this stage better? You? Okay, you run first to hit the 5 targets and gain maximum points. If I'm the weaker shooter, possibly maybe you run it second and give that first teammate the chance to get as many points as possible.
Yep, absolutely. And this is the joy, I guess, of this type of discipline being fairly fresh in the country, is that in time, you're taking so much in now, but when you go to the PRS in Mildura and then onto the NT shoot in August, that stuff's probably going to be less and less of an issue for you because you go, I'm so quick on the data and all that sort of gear, I'm going to really listen and concentrate on the team brief, and that information that you're talking about now will obviously be shared across a number of people. And mention to Team Ice-T, Andy McNeil and Nick Halliwell, who top scored on that particular stage with 7 points. Just so you know, Galen, you guys are on 6, so you weren't far behind.
Yeah, not far off, and they shot
really well.
They shot really well.
And to be fair, Nick top scored on that stage last year as well.
Yeah, correct. They shot very, very well. They shot after me. I watched them shoot the stage.
Yep.
They approached it well. They actually strategized. I watched them do that.
Amazing how much difference
and look, they shot it really well, and they came, and I think they got bonus points for coming in under time.
They did. I think they hit as many targets as you did, but they came in slightly under time.
Just briefly, it's probably worth noting that all you people listening that shot on this competition, we only name the people that do well here, and the ones that don't do quite so well, we just refer to them as unnamed individuals.
Can't deny it. All right, good. So we move on to the first of Andrew's stage. Andrew, do you want to take us through snooker?
Okay.
Which is, again, one of the top 3 favourite stages, I suspect.
Almost certainly, because I was the one running it, I would imagine.
Probably the only reason.
Yeah.
The stage itself was rubbish.
Another modest guy.
Yeah. Of course.
Can't shut you up, can we, Greg?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to keep it down.
Well, Greg, you can have some input with these because you were closest in proximity to these.
I heard gunshots, so yeah, that's as close as I got.
You're probably asleep half the time too. But.
No, he had enough coffee to wake him up.
I think I did fall asleep, but when
Okay, basically the snooker stage was, if anyone's familiar with snooker being, the 8-ball, well, not 8-ball, the snooker billiard table type game, you have basically, for this version of it, we had a red target, which was relatively close. It was 220 metres away. And then all the corresponding colours, which were yellow, green, brown, blue, pink and black. Now, on this particular stage, they had to engage the red target.
Yep.
And then nominate a coloured target, any of them from furthest, closest, whichever they could.
Each of those coloured balls that Andrew was talking about was out roughly about 100 metres or so out.
Yeah.
Each colour sort of moved an extra 100 metres for the ball.
Yeah, sort of starting at 333 metres for the yellow, going out to 810 for the black.
Yep.
Yeah, and the black ball was certainly definitely the hardest one to hit. It was sort of in a spot where you couldn't really see your fall of shot so well. So basically, they would nominate a ball, and next to where the shooter was a box with all the balls in it. Anyway, so they would nominate a particular colour they were going to shoot on. They would remove that appropriate coloured ball from the box and just place it out of the box. And then they would have to then engage that target. Now, that once they'd nominated a particular colour, they would have to keep shooting until they hit it. And then they would have to come back, re-engage the red ball, then nominate another colour and keep going on in such a fashion. There was no particular order. They could choose whichever order they wished. Basically, it was 120 seconds, unlimited rounds. So, effectively the two closer ones were worth 1 point per impact. The next two were worth 2 points, and then the furthest two targets were worth 3 points per impact. So, it was a pretty interesting stage because...
And they had to hit the red ball in between each
one.
And that was with no points.
No, but it was interesting to watch because some guys were getting stressed. They would maybe nominate the further targets first, and then they'd hit one of them when they'd come back, forget to dial their turrets, and then, they're trying to shoot a 220-metre target and missing badly and getting frustrated. As a spectator, I guess, it was pretty entertaining to watch. And quite simple stage, I would have thought. I mean, I guess I was running it, so... But from a shooter's perspective, Galen, it was fairly straightforward. It wasn't an overly complex stage.
Certainly not in my top three of favourites on the day, but certainly in the top four. A fun stage. I approached it. I don't know how other people approached it, but I approached it in that because having to transition back to the red target between hitting a colour, I decided to ignore the lower value scores. Which I think were on the right hand side, the brown.
There was a bit of an arc to it as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, they were spread out at probably a 45 degree.
Yellow and green or something was over there.
Yellow and green were the closer to, yeah.
Correct. So I ignored those and I went straight for pink, which I think was the second furthest.
Yeah, pink was 700 metres.
Yeah. So I went red. Went out to the 700 metre target, the pink one, back to the red, and then I hit the blue and brown. Quite solidly. I think I got them all first round and ended up with, I think I tried 3 rounds on the black, which was about 800 metres.
810, yeah.
And I actually didn't hit the black. So I kind of tried to reap as many points as I could. If I had put around on that black, I would have then come back to kind of scoop up some more points on the lower value targets. I think if I recall... Scotty Patel shot that like a demon. He shot that.
Did.
He smashed it.
I think there's one target he didn't get.
Yeah, he smashed that, and I think I didn't dial. I held for everything.
Yep.
And just simply to save some time. In hindsight, I'd dial for the 800 again, but I'm not sure how Scotty ran that. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't really recall exactly. I know that other guy from the Northern Territory just held everything, and he did fairly well, I think.
That guy we don't mention.
Yeah. That guy.
Butters.
Butters.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Andrew, what were the approaches you saw on that particular stage? Because it was one that it was so open as how you approached it.
That was sort of what I was looking forward to seeing. It was a stage where people were very much left to their own devices as how they were going to attempt it.
Yeah, whether
rather
they
than
start
rather
at
than
points
just
or...
rather than a stage where this is how you have to shoot it. Most guys, I would say, started with the closer ones and worked their way out. We had a couple of guys hit the longer ones first and then moved their way back. But I would say the vast majority actually went in range order.
And seeing all of that, if you were to shoot it now, which way would you go?
Personally, I'd probably go furthest to closest.
Yep.
I mean, there was some tricky wins there. I mean, 800 metres is not a super long shot, but it was sort of where the target was located. It was difficult. I mean, I was looking through a spotting scope. I had a much better view of where things were going, and it was difficult. One of those stages you really had to look closely and carefully through the spotting scope to see where the fall of shot were going, let alone through a scope coming back from recoil. So, yeah, I personally would have started with the 800 and got the hard ones out the way first.
If I recall, you couldn't transition to the next target without getting hit first.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's why I didn't go for the 800. Because if I'd struggled on the 800, I'd get no points. I knew I mean, we can all hit 800, right? But, hopefully. But that was a challenging
Greg's
800.
Here.
Yeah. you could hit 800. It was a challenge.
It wasn't a thermal target. So.
No,
it was heated up enough.
It wasn't a fox. It was a challenging 800-metre target, as Andrew says. So that's why I went pink, blue and the brown to get some points. And then I thought, hey, I've got some more time. I'll go for the black and try and reap those.
Interestingly, though, and this is the way I would have viewed it personally, is you didn't have a round count on this. You could have as many shots as you wanted. So if you took a few to get on at 800, you could just bam, bam, bam. And if you watched your fall of shot, you had that time to put 3 or 4 out there, hit it, and then move back to the closest sure thing target. So I think that's how a couple of guys viewed it, but not the majority. Majority of guys wanted to leave that till last, and then they put themselves under that time pressure.
Yeah, interesting. It was. I think that's why it was popular, because there were so many approaches to it. You could have taken it so many different ways, and it certainly challenged out. We had one guy hang around for a couple of days of private training afterwards, and he could not wait to get back up on that top of that hill and shoot snooker, and did for quite a long time. We used that as a big wind training exercise up there.
Yeah, and this just sort of touching on what we spoke about earlier about stages where your teammate could actually help or hinder you.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
This was a stage where I saw at least 2 pairs where the teammate, we allowed them to spot and call corrections for their partner.
But the scores were done individually, and then they'd account towards the team as well.
Yeah, so obviously it was you would try to help your teammate as much as possible, but I saw some... looking through a spotting scope, very frustrating wind calls that were made that were completely wrong, and the shooter honoured those calls and held where they were told to hold, and just further out and
didn't go well.
No, it's one of those stages that as an RO you just wish you could just go. It's not going there. It's going here. But no, I think that's again that kind of thing will improve in years to come. With guys that are actually familiar with. Guys sort of, the typical, a bit to the right, a bit up. Whereas the guys that were really onto it were making, specific correction calls, which is good.
So we're going to leave that there for this episode. End up being quite a long episode, so we're going to cut it short there. It was a really good fun comp, and we really do want to give you a good perspective of what happened, and from running it through to actually shooting it, we think most of the guys had a really good time. So we'll leave it there, and we'll be back into it in the next episode. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast. To continue the discussion, check out our Facebook page. And for more information, head to our website, www.precisionshootingpodcast.com.au. This episode was brought to you by Projectile Warehouse. Find your perfect projectile.